Alright, hey guys, 大家好. So welcome back to Cantolounge, and more specifically to lesson 15 of the Learn Cantonese series. I'm super excited, guys. I mean, I can't even believe we're on lesson 15 already. So I really hope to wrap this series up very soon. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. So before we jump into today's content, as usual, if you haven't already done so, I would highly encourage you to subscribe to the channel and by clicking the red button below, as you can see, if you're on YouTube. And after you've clicked that, do not forget to click the bell button as well. So that's how you can receive the latest notifications whenever I update the channel with a new video, be it a video in the Learn Cantonese series or a video in the Language Diary series or something else, right? So there we go. Hopefully we'll keep growing, and your support really means a lot to me. So thank you so much once again for tuning in to this episode. So in today's lesson, we're going to be following our progression from last time. And today we're going to revert back to a normal quote-unquote lengthed lesson, because if you guys have been following the series for a while, our last lesson lasted for it was extraordinarily long, and it was I think it was 1.5 hours. And the reason that was because there were just so many things to talk about in that lesson, which was Cantonese conjunctions. But this time we're going to be doing something a little bit simpler, and this lesson in particular is going to be a little bit more like a recap. So we've already mentioned negation, as you can probably see in the title. We've sprinkled this throughout. We haven't really mentioned it explicitly per se, but we have sprinkled it throughout previous lessons. So I hope that today will serve both as a recap and kind of as with a focus on negation. There we go. So hope you guys are ready to dive in. Maybe have your cup of coffee ready if you're a coffee lover. All right, so negation. What exactly is negation? So grammar jargon out of the way. I don't like jargon either. Very simply, it's saying something that you, the opposite of what you want to say in terms of verbs and adjectives in particular, I believe. So, like, I did, how do you say I did not, right? So in English, we add not. That's one particular pattern of negation. And today we're going to be looking at 12 scenarios or patterns today, and we're going to be doing that, of course, in Cantonese. Okay. So hopefully, if you guys have been following the series, this will trigger some stuff that we've talked about in the previous lessons while focusing on the negation aspect of it. So number one, I want to talk to you guys about negating the past. So in Cantonese, this is, and hopefully I didn't add the yuping here. You guys should know these characters very well now. The pattern is mo plus verb plus go. So remember, one particular way of expressing the past would be to add go after the verb. And to negate it, all you have to do is to add mo. But remember, that goes in front of the verb, okay? So, example sentence. This is super simple, guys. I mean, today's lesson is just like, we're gonna fly by it. So we have here, 係啊，我冇試過嗰檔嘅地獄拉麵. Yes, that's right. I haven't, negation, tried the hell ramen in that noodles shop. Right? So very, very straightforward. Okay, so nothing in particular to elaborate on, so moving on. Pattern number two, negating the present. And this is even simpler, guys. I mean, if you've just been to Cantolounge, but you have a little bit of a background in Cantonese, you'll know the key word here is right? So adding in front of the verb negates the present. So for example, 我一句意大利文都唔識講. I don't speak a word of Italian, which is true, by the way. I don't speak Italian. So, and this quick recap would be on topicalization, 意大利文, right? So usually you say, I don't speak Italian, but in Cantonese, you could switch the order to say, I Italian don't speak, right? And we covered that in Cantonese word order. I think it was in lesson 7. Correct me if I'm wrong. but there we go, right? 識講. So moving on, number 3, negating the future. So to do that, very, very simple. Remember, we talked about the future tense or expressing the future in Cantonese. All you have to do, is to add 會 before the verb. And to negate that, you simply add once again before 會. So all you have to remember here is the word order, but if you can do that, you're good to go. And if you don't, no worries. Just come back and refer to the video, the blog post, or notes you've taken, maybe. Who knows? So moving on to the example. 我決定畢業之後唔會繼續讀碩士或者博士. Really, that should, maybe you want to add 學位 after. So 學位 would be a degree, but continuing. So I've decided 我決定畢業之後 after graduating 唔會繼續 I will not continue 讀 pursue to study 碩士或者博士 a master's or a PhD. Okay, so very, very straightforward as well. Moving on. Number 4, negating repetitive actions. So if you'll remember, I think we discussed, again, I don't remember which lesson this was, but when we were talking about the future tense, we talked about how we shouldn't think of the future tense equals to 會, right? Because that isn't always true. And so 會 can also be used to express things that you do repetitively, whereas in English, the simple present tense is used to do that. Like for example, I wake up at 7 every day would be 我每日都會7點起身. Now to negate that, it's actually exactly the same thing, but I just want to add that scenario in there, just to make it a little bit more explicit. So again, 會 plus verb. So for example, 今年破例成家人都唔會去彩燈會. So 破例 means to make an exception. 成家人 means the whole family. And 彩燈會 is actually the mid-autumn lantern carnival. It's usually an event that's held in each district, in many districts across Hong Kong every year during Mid-Autumn Festival by the, I actually don't know what the English name of that organization is, but by the government organization 康文署. It's like the organization that governs like leisure and entertainment activities in Hong Kong, that kind of stuff. So 唔會去, like will not go this year, right? Moving on, negating capability. So capability would be things like can, can't, that kind of thing. So how do you say can't? Well, how do you say can first off? One way of expressing that is verb plus 到. So for example, 我聽到, I can hear, I'm capable of hearing. So if you want to say the opposite of that, I can't hear, all you have to do is to add before the 到, right? So you want to sandwich between the verb and the 到. So once again, word order is important here, but as long as you remember that, you're good to go. So for example, you might say something like 我頭先飲啖湯嗰陣，一啲豬骨味都 feel 唔到. So when I was taking a sip of the soup earlier, I could not feel even an iota of the flavor of pork bones in the soup broth. And yeah, feel is actually something we use extensively in Cantonese. So you can already hear the critics saying, how come this isn't a Cantonese word? Well, you know, we do code switching. Code switching, again, fancy term to say we switch between Cantonese and English. So, or rather, I think the more accurate description would be we incorporate English words in our Cantonese vocabulary. Okay, so this is perfectly legit. Okay, moving on. Pattern number 6, negating commands. Now, this is actually a subject that we haven't talked about before, but commands in Cantonese are, and the reason I've deferred it is because commands in Cantonese are just so simple, so straightforward. I don't think that's even part of a lesson. Because, like, for example, in English, right, if you want to give a command, you say, I don't know, imagine you're giving a command to your dog or something. So you want to say, go, sit, heel, or yelp, or bark, or something like that. The word doesn't actually change, right? You say go, and when you're given a command, you say go. Well, in Cantonese, it's something like that as well. So for example, eat is 食, right? And if you want to turn that into a command, you simply say 食 as well. There's no magic to it. So now that we know that, the way to negate a command is to simply add 唔好 before the command, right? So for example, very, very simple example, 唔好咁大聲講嘢. So don't speak so loudly, right? So 講嘢 would be to speak, right? And if you add 唔好 before that, 唔好講嘢, or you want to be a little bit more descriptive, 唔好咁大聲講嘢, don't speak, or don't speak so loudly. Right? Again, very, very straightforward. And continuing, pattern number 7, emphasizing negation. So what do I mean by that? For example, you might be making a statement, excuse me, to clarify something, and you want to make your tone a little bit stronger. And in this case, you might want to add the word 並 in front of the negated phrase, right? So for example, we have something like 我並唔係喺度玩針對. So this is a fairly colloquial phrase. Just get the vocab out of the way first. 玩針對 is to pick on someone, to single someone out, just to pick on them, to launch like an attack at someone. Not physical, but verbally, that kind of thing. So compare that with 我唔係喺度玩針對. So I'm not here to play games, to pick on him, right? And if you add 並 before that, 我並唔係喺度玩針對, that makes your tone a lot stronger, right? To clarify, maybe you're just giving some feedback, I'm not necessarily trying to bully him or something like that. All right, so moving on. Number 8, negating adjectives. And this is super easy, guys, as well. Again, it's exactly the same thing as verbs with an additional note I will mention here. So remember that when we were talking about adjectives before, that you want to add 好 before the adjective, right? For example, he is tall. We don't say 佢係高. That's like the most common mistake beginners make. We say 佢好高, right? Because 高 doesn't necessarily translate to tall. It's more like it translates to the state of being tall. So that resembles more of the behavior of a verb more than an adjective. And so when we're talking about negation, right, you could simply drop the whole entirely and say 佢唔高, like to say he's not tall, right? Or you could keep the 好, but you have to add the 係 in front of that. So you can say 佢唔係好高. So that would here it would actually mean he's not really that tall. Right? So there's a slight difference in nuance. So be careful on how you use it. They're not equivalent when you add the 係好 or when you omit the 係好 in the negated pattern. Okay, so a quick example. 頭先嗰餐飯真係唔係好貴. So our meal just now that we had was really not that expensive, right? So 唔係好貴, really not that expensive. Nothing to elaborate on here as well, so we're going to move on. Pattern number 9, saying not only. Now this is something, if memory serves, that we talked about last lesson. But just a quick recap, because I think this is just so useful to use in real life when talking about negative things, negative sentences, right? Not negative things as in like negative, the opposite of positive. Anyway, continuing. The pattern is 唔止, right? To say not only. So don't worry too much about the parenthesis. It looks a little bit more involved, but it actually isn't. You can add the 單 character here, right? To say 唔單止. That's completely at your discretion, or I mean that's completely your choice. It's up to you whether to add that or not. It doesn't really make much of a difference. I personally like saying 唔單止 just because it feels nicer to me, but they're practically the same. And afterwards, it's usually followed by a clause, right? So not only, but also, or not only, even, or something like that, right? So you can the choice of whatever comes after, really, it's just up to what you want to say, right? So there's no way to generalize it. So continuing, For example, you might say something or you might hear something like 佢唔單止頭髮蓬鬆，連件衫都可以着反咗. So not only is his hair just like messy and all over the place, he even 連件衫都着反咗. He even wore his shirt, right? Inside out, right? 反 is actually, I think I used the wrong character. Sorry about that, guys. That should be 反 without the radical, the 停在邊. You can watch the radical video to know what that refers to, right? But 反 means like to invert, right? So invert a direction of a shirt would be one way of inverting would be inside out. So that's what that means here. 蓬鬆 is actually an interesting word. 頭髮蓬鬆, it's used with fur or hair. So, with pets or, people's hair when it's really just messy and it's a little bit unkempt, So that's a word that you might find useful. Moving on, number 10, an extended negative state. So before we dive in, I just wanted to describe what exactly is an extended negative state. Well, very simply, it's a state that is negative, that spans a period of time. So for example, something like she has disliked the squirrel for a period of time, right? And that, or let me think, he's been hungry for a period of time, right? And in this case, the positive state, we actually add 咗 after the verb or the adjective, right? So for example, he's been hungry for a while now. You can say 佢已經肚餓 or 餓咗一段時間, right? So that's another use of 咗 that I think we mentioned before when we're talking about the past tense. I don't necessarily remember off the top of my head, so you could check that lesson out if you're not entirely familiar with that. And to negate that, all you have to do is to add before that. Super, super simple, right? I mean, remembering all this is just like a walk in the park. So hopefully you guys are enjoying this kind of an easier lesson today. So for example, you might say something like 幅畫佢唔鍾意咗好耐. So once again, we're seeing this topicalization pattern where instead of saying she disliked the painting, we're saying the painting she disliked, right? Which is perfectly legit and valid in Cantonese. So she's disliked the painting for a long time. So this is the state, right? A state of disliking something over a span or a period of time. All right, so that's that. Moving on, number 11, emphasizing negation in questions. This is actually a pretty fun one, guys. All you have to do is to add 仲未 before the verb. And I don't think we've covered questions yet, but again, it's a super simple topic that I just don't think it's hugely difficult. So again, I either deferred or just left out of the curriculum entirely at Cantolounge. So for example, you might see a normal question might be 你食完未? Are you done eating yet? Right? 未 means yet. And what I mean by an emphasized negation in questions is you can make that a little bit stronger. You can make it sound like as if you're incredulous. Oh my goodness, are you still not done eating? By adding 仲未 before the verb, which here is 食. So here we have, instead of saying 你食完未, you can say 你仲未食完. As if you find the notion that a person could still be eating preposterous. Are you still not done eating? So that's how you would use that. Continuing. So we have, I think this is the last pattern. We also have the double negative, right? And the double negative, as you can probably imagine, uses the negative word twice. So we can say twice, right? So that cancels each other out. So 係plus verb is actually something that you'll hear fairly quite often as well. So I just wanted to introduce that to you guys today here as well. So for example, you might say something like 我唔係唔想去燒烤，而係去唔到. So you can say it's not that I don't want to go to the barbecue, it's that I can't go for whatever reason, right? So I do want to go, right? It's not that I don't. So double negation here means positive, right? So I do want to go to the barbecue, but I can't. So contrast that with 我想去燒烤，但係去唔到。The double negation, I feel that it's a lot more, there's a lot more emphasis, and it sounds a lot stronger to me. So again, if you want to sound stronger when explaining yourself or something like that, then you might want to consider using the double negative. Okay. So that's about it for today's lesson. Hopefully that was a little bit shorter than last time, which was just crazy. The last post actually took me a long while to write as well. There's just so many example sentences. But yeah, once again, this is the abbreviated version of the lesson. I took the sample sentences and modified a couple of them to make them fit in the slides. But to get the full version, to get those higher level sentences, you want to check out the blog post. And as usual, it's just cantolounge.com/Cantonese-negation. And there are many more examples, and I hope that they will be as useful to you guys as they have been fun, for me to write. All right, as usual, please give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful. And I, of course, as usual, welcome any questions or comments, or if you just want to drop by and say hi, that's very welcome as well. So leave them in the comments area below, and I will do my best to get back to you guys. Okay, so that's it for today's content, guys, and I hope to see you guys soon. And yeah, so thanks once again for tuning in, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a nice one, and until next time, cheers.